چہلم جو کربلا میں 72 کا ہو چکا، پیوند بے کسوں کے تنو سر کا ہو چکا، اور فاتحہ حسین کے لشکر کا ہو چکا، قبروں پشور آلے پیمبر کا ہو چکا، ماتم میں 3 روزے رہے شور و شین سے، روئے لپٹ لپٹ کے، روئے لپٹ لپٹ کے مزار حسین سے، آئے تھے کس طرح سے، وطن کس طرح چلے، نہ شہر ہے نہ گودیوں میں گود کے پلے، ہماری قبول کی، چہلم جو کربلا میں، درود بھیجے محمد والے محمد۔
بارے دیگر سلوات۔
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔
آمین۔ کربلا ہوتے ہیں دفن آج شہیدان کربلا ماتم سے گونجتا ہے بیابان کربلا میدان بنا ہے حشر کا میدان کربلا پرسا دو مل کے فاطمہ کے نور عین کا پیٹو سروں کو آج ہے چہلم حسین کا پیٹو سروں کو آج ہے چہلم حسین کا ہو کر رہا جو آیا حرم سے یہ قافلہ اور پہنچا قتل گاہ میں بحالت تباہ ہر بی بی اتری ناقے سے کرتی ہوئی بکا آہو فغاں سے ہل رہی تھی عرض کربلا نوحہ کنا تھی بیبیاں سب شور و شین سے زینب لپٹ کے روتی تھی لاش حسین سے زینب لپٹ کے روتی تھی لاش حسین کرتی تھی رو کے بین وہ بھائی کی لاش پر آئی ہوں شام و کوفہ کو اے بھائی کر کے سر روداد اپنی کیسے سناؤں میں نوحہ گر ظاہر نشان ہے رسی کے بازو پہ سر بسر بازوار کوفہ میں یہ بہن ننگے سر پھری دربار شام میں گئی اور در بدر پھری دربار شام میں گئی اور در بدر پھری اہل حرم کو قیدی بنایا لعینوں نے اونٹوں پہ بے کجاوا بٹھایا لعینوں نے عابد کو ہر قدم پہ ستایا لعینوں نے میں کیا کہوں جو ظلم کمایا لعینوں نے کانوں سے بندے کھینچ لیے ہیں سکینہ کے زخمی ہے کان دختر شاہ مدینہ کے زخمی ہے کان دختر شاہ مدینہ کے ہو کر رہا میں آئی ہوں اے بھائی جاؤ اٹھو بن آپ کے میں جاؤں گی کیوں کر مدینے کو پوچھیں گے اہل شہر بھی احوال آ کے جو کیا دوں گی میں جواب بھلا تم ہی اب کہو کس منہ سے اب میں قبر پیغمبر پہ جاؤں گی پوچھیں گے جو بطول تو میں کیا بتاؤں گی پوچھیں گی جو بطول تو میں کیا بتاؤں گی مجھ سے جو پوچھا جائے گا زینب یہ کیا ہوا کیوں کر یہ گلستان محمد اجڑ گیا ہے خاک سر پہ پہنی ہے یوں ہے بات میرے دا شبیر ساتھ کیوں نہیں کیا ہے یہ ماجرا عباس اور قاسم و اکبر کدھر گئے کیوں کر کہوں گی بن میں وہ مجھ سے بچھڑ گئے کیوں کر کہوں گی بن میں وہ مجھ سے بچھڑ گئے کیوں کر کہے گی بے سرو سامان کربلا پیاسے تھے 3 روز کے مہمان نے کربلا رن میں شہید ہو گئے سلطان کربلا راس آیا میرے پیاروں کو میدان کربلا کرب و بلا کے بن میں انہیں کھو کے آئی ہوں صد حیف میں سنانی 72 کی لائی ہوں کرب و بلا کے بن میں انہیں کھو کے آئی ہوں صد حیف میں سنانی 72 کی لائی ہوں چہلم کو آ رہے ہیں صلوات محمد
محمد و آل محمد صلوات
الفاتحة شفاء المرضى ودفع البلاء وقضاء الحوائج
Please recite Surah Al-Fatiha for the following marhumeen: Marhum Bashir Rahim, Marhuma Sugra Bai Rahim, Marhum Nur Ali Bamani, Marhum Qais Nur Muhammad, Marhum Haidar Ali Qasim Ali Bimani, and Marhum Abdul Rasul Ali Bai Walji. For all of them, please recite Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم Please open your Qur'ans to chapter number 30. Chapter number 30, Surah Al-Rum, verse number 8. Chapter number 30, Surah Al-Rum, verse number 8. For the love of our Holy Prophet Muhammad, one loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا الممجد بشير المصدق المصطفى الأمجد محمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلن تجد لسنة الله تبديلا ولن تجد لسنة الله تحويلا آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد. Awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, my respected teachers, elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا أبي عبد الله الحسين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. At times, there is two or more Sunan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are working together at the same time. Sometimes, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala implements His Sunan, He may be implementing one, and at other times, it may be that one sunnah runs, but then a second sunnah comes in and actually brings the first sunnah into proportion, or actually precedes the other sunnah and changes the outcome of our life or the destiny that we have. What controls this? Amongst the asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah has been given 3 divine names that helps us to be able to understand the relationship between that which has been set for us and that which can increase or be given to us quicker, as well as the opposite, that which may decrease for us or may even be delayed for us. What are the rules that govern from the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What are those rules that given what is decreed and what is actually expedited or what is actually going to be delayed for us, with a particular focus and attention on Allah's expediting those matters for us? What are the conditions that we can use and understand for those matters that may be expedited within our life? Normally, we think about it very narrowly. We think about expediting our dua. We say, oh Allah, I need X, and therefore we want Allah to hurry up with that thing. Because in my very short-sighted, narrow world view, whatever I'm asking for, I need it as quick as possible. Actually, from the Quranic perspective, Allah being the expediter of certain things is far broader than just the idea of us requiring something and hoping that that dua becomes mustajab, responded to earlier and quicker and quicker. Tonight, inshallah, we want to be able to look at these asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how He mentions in the Quran that there is a determined decree for everything, but then in the Quran, He also provides us with examples of when things become expedited. Expedited in what contexts? Number 1, for ourselves individually. Number 2, in the sense that as a community raises its consciousness, Allah will expedite the things that He wishes to be able to gift to that community. Number 2. Number 3, in terms of the responsibilities that we have, as Allah reveals something to us, when we utilize that thing in the right way, with proper responsibility, Allah can then give us more and more and more. And with these 3, we want to be able to look at how Allah is actually the expediter of those things that He has decreed for us. Amongst the asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are His divine names, which are, He is Al-Qadir, He is Al-Muqaddim, and He is Al-Mu'khir. These three grand names of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Al-Qadir, meaning that Allah is all powerful, all capable of whatever He wishes to do. Allah is Al-Muqaddim. He is the one who expedites as well. He brings forward something, even though it has been determined previously. And He is Al-Mu'khir. He is also the one who may delay the outcome of something, even though previously He has set something for you and I. When we say Allah is Al-Qadir, there are many deep and detailed meanings of Allah being all-powerful. Some of them are very simplistic, some of them are very detailed, important for us to be able to understand. Let me give you one or two examples of how our theologians and ulama begin to explain the idea of Allah being Al-Qadir, all-capable. When we say Allah is all-capable, are there any limits to Allah's capacity? Can Allah do everything and anything? No. There are certain things that Allah cannot do. And those things that Allah cannot do are things which are logical fallacies. For example, if I said, can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make a hat so large that He cannot wear it? What would you say? It's not possible, is it? Doesn't make sense. Allah is not physical in a single location such that there can be a hat bigger than what He can wear. So even though Allah is all capable and all powerful, we cannot say Allah is capable of doing something like this. It is a contradiction in terms. Or another simple example, can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create a second God? No, because the moment it is created, it is not God. So you cannot state Allah can create or create a second God. Can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create a rock that is so heavy that He cannot lift it? No. So even though we say Allah is Al-Qadir, we have to be able to acknowledge what our meaning and definition of this grand ism of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Another part of Allah being Al-Qadir is that He is not restricted by this, and nothing else is restricting Him. There's no secondary force that is besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that tells Him when He has to do something or when He cannot do something. Because the moment there would be an outside restriction upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala determining when He can do something or can't do something, then He loses that sifa of being Al-Qadir. So this is another explanation of the meaning of Allah being Al-Qadir, and so on and so forth. Now there are many different explanations of the meaning of Al-Qadir. This is just a very brief. As part of this explanation, Allah being Al-Qadir, being all capable, He is also capable of being the one who brings something forward when He determines and decides. He is Al-Muqaddim, and He is also the one who can determine to delay something if He so desires to be able to do something, which makes Him Al-Mu'khir. And so these two divine attributes and names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are subservient to the previous name of Him being Al-Qadir. The fact that we see that He is also Al-Muqaddim and Al-Mu'khir, these are subservient to Him being Al-Qadir. And this is the relationship between these three divine asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fact that Allah has created creation, He creates it according to an order, and He even creates everything to a determined degree. Everything in creation has a set time. But at the same time, when He wants to be able to bring something new into creation, or He wishes to reveal something into creation, or He wishes to be able to accept something from us as a dua and then bring it into creation, even though Allah is all powerful, He also uses these asma to be able to determine the outcome of those secondary determinations, whether He brings something quicker for you and I, being al-Muqaddim, or whether He delays something for us, being al-Mua'khir. And this is what we want to be able to discuss tonight a little bit, with the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in honor of our third holy Imam, Imam Aba Abdullah al-Hussein salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. Please open your Qur'ans to chapter number 30, Surah Ar-Rum, verse number 8. As part of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu being Al-Qadir, all capable, amongst the capabilities and the determinations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that He has determined a time for everything. Now I want you to be very broad in your thinking about everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed a time, a determined time for our lifespan, for example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed a determined lifespan for an empire. Allah has determined the American empire will live for this long and not a moment longer. The moment Allah decides, that empire will be gone, confined to the ashtrays of history, like every other empire, and everything else that will come after it as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has determined a set decree and time for when a star is going to die as well. Sometimes stars live for billions of years. And so even for that amount of time, down to the very nanosecond, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has determined when it will come into creation and when it will go out of creation. And that is part of Allah being Al-Qadir. Have a look at this ayah. Chapter number 30, verse number 8. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. Do they not reflect within their own souls, within their own selves? Is there any one of us that don't realize that everything that we have experienced in this life has a beginning and an ending, and that it has been decreed with a time that is finite? If we understand this within our own selves, we understand that this is from the Sunan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether it is smaller than us or whether it is greater than us, everything has a set decree for when it comes into creation and when it will leave creation as well. أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ وَأَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى. Subhanallah. Allah has not created the heavens, nor the earth, nor what is between them. You see, everything in this physical realm, from the heavens, the skies, the universe, and its expansion, and the earth, and everything that is between those two things, but with two qualities. Bil-haqq, truth, wa ajalin, musamma. And for an appointed term. That is the determination of Allah. Now think about this. If I asked you, what is between the heavens and the earth? If I said to you, earth, it's decreed for a certain time, you say, okay. Even what is between the heavens and the earth, what might you say between those two things? Stars. Even in the earth, what is within the earth as well is also for a determined decree. So what is within the earth? Coal, minerals, what else? Oil, gold, silver, iron, gas. Everything, whether we realize it or we don't, everything Allah has set with ajalin musamma, a decreed amount of time for its existence. Isn't it interesting? If Allah has determined for a certain mineral to exist for a certain time, that's it. He says, I'm Al-Qadir. That's by determination. I'm all-powerful, that after this moment, that mineral runs out, that mineral no longer exists. What would you and I do once that mineral is taken away from us? You see? And Allah can at the same time then determine to change that. And He can make it speed up, its ending speed up. He is Al-Muqaddim, the expediter of that decision. Or He is Mua'khir, the delayer of that decision. So now, every one of these minerals that we rely so heavily upon to make up our world, Allah can do two things. He can bring into existence something new. He can allow something to exist and then finish quicker, or He can allow that thing to be even further delayed and delayed and delayed for us to be able to utilize it. It wasn't until around the 1800s that we really discovered one of the minerals that we rely on so heavily until today. For example, lithium was only discovered around 200 years ago. Before that, we didn't know it existed. We didn't know its properties. We didn't know its features and benefits. And now today, how much we rely upon lithium. How much of the batteries, lithium, from all of its usage, about 70% of all lithium stocks are used for our batteries in cars, in phones. About 20% of lithium is actually used for glass as well, because it helps us to be able to heat up the glass at a lower amount, at a lower temperature. Makes it easier for us to be able to conduct that process. 200 years ago, we didn't realize it existed. Allah determines when He decides to be able to expedite something for us, bring it forward for us. And if Allah had determined, we might not have discovered this most brilliant creation of Allah for even longer and longer and longer. Can you imagine how much we are reliant on Allah's names of Him being Al-Qadir, Al-Mu'akhir, and Al-Muqaddim for everything that occurs within our life? Not just simply dua, but everything that we do is reliant upon these asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. Do they not reflect deep within themselves? مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ وَأَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى. Despite this, وَإِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِنَ النَّاسِ بِلِقَاءِ رَبِّهِمْ لَكَافِرُونَ. Most surely, many of the people are deniers with the meeting with their Lord. They realize everything has a determined time. They don't realize that death is determined for them. They don't realize that the day of judgment also has a decreed time. And so many people actually deny that there is going to be their meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, if Allah has determined something as a set decree for you and I, a term for everything, an amount for everything, there are certain shurut mentioned in the Quran for how we can actually expedite those benefits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given to us. What I want to do is mention 3 of them from the perspective of the Holy Quran, and to see how we can make benefit of Allah's name of being Al-Muqaddim, and for us to be able to see how that sunnah of Allah works. That even though He is Al-Qadir and He has set for us determinations, there is a way for us to be able to benefit from Allah's ism of Him being Al-Muqaddim within our own lives. And not just simply within the idea of dua, but also within the broader fields of how Allah can bring something forward as per the examples of the Holy Quran. Let us start with the most simple one, that's something we should be doing with every part of our life in order to bring about an expedited positive outcome for us in the things that we do. Please open your Qur'ans to chapter number 18, Surah Al-Kahf. Verse number 23 and 24. for an expedited outcome, for a better outcome than what had been previously decreed for us, the principle has to be that we link that which we are doing with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It might be so obvious, it might be so basic, but actually it is fundamental to everything that we do, the successful outcome of everything we do. And if we want an expedited outcome, then the way to be able to achieve that is actually by linking that act that we do with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have a look at these two verses. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا. Sorry. وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا. شَيْءٍ. My apology. شَيْءٍ. And do not say, وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ. This noon shadda is a ta'keed here. Allah is saying, don't ever say anything. لِشَيْءٍ. Of anything. You see, shay, as we mentioned in a previous discussion, is even the most minute of things within this world. So the minutest thing that you can imagine doing in this world, whatever it may be, the most tiniest of things that you can imagine doing, وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا. And I'll do it tomorrow. Verse number 24, إِلَّا إِن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. Unless that you adjoin with it, that you say, except that Allah pleases for that to happen. What do we say whenever we want to do something? We say, Insha'Allah. Don't even do the most tiniest of things unless that you make sure that you're remembering Allah's will in that particular action. It continues. إِلَّا إِن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ. And remember your Lord. إِذَا نَسِيتَ. If you forget. وَقُلْ عَسَىٰ أَن يَهْدِيَنِي رَبِّي لِأَقْرَبَ مِنْ هَذَا رَشَدًا. And say, so if you forget to ascribe Allah to that act, then you should remember Him and say, maybe my Lord will guide me to a nearer course, a better course to the right than this. You see, I've wanted X, I've forgotten Allah in that act. When I remember Him, don't only just remember Him by saying, Insha'Allah, actually add to it and say, maybe Allah will determine something even better for me, even closer to the best possible outcome for it, which would include, if Allah desires, expediting the most positive outcome for you. To what extent should we be remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every little small act that we do? In the hadith it mentions once, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu addresses Musa alayhi salam. Many of these riwayat that reach us, there are exquisite, very intimate discussions between Allah Jalla Jalaluhu and Prophet Musa alayhi salam. He says to him, O Musa, remember me to the extent that you need me. Musa alayhi salam, the narration asks Allah, O my Lord, to what extent do I need you? Well, think about this question for a second for yourself. To what extent do we need Allah? We need Him to the extent that without His permission, I cannot even draw breath with my next breath. بِحَوْلِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى وَقُوَّتِهِ وَأَقُومُ وَأَقْعُدُ. With His power, with His determination, do I stand, do I sit, do I walk, do I breathe, do I blink? Without Allah's determination, I don't even have the power to do this. Is there a moment that I should remove, insha'Allah, from something that I want to occur within my life? O Musa, remember me to the extent that you need me. Oh Allah, to what extent do I need you such that I should remember you this way? Allah says, even ask me for the salt in your food. You see, for the human being, salt is just, it's so ordinary, it's so tiny, we even have a word to determine the small nature of it. We use the word grains to ascribe the idea of salt. A few grains of salt fell on the table. Wipe it up, just sort of blow it away. Even those few grains of salt, we need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. And that without remembering Him for that, you and I really wouldn't have any chance of being able to grab it. We wouldn't have the power to be able to. Once, one of the caliphs was sitting, one of the imams of Ahlul Bayt, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. The caliph was being bugged by a fly. Fly is buzzing around his face. And the caliph has all the power in the world that he thinks, right? He has armies. He has slaves. He has horsemen. He has all the possible things that you could use in battle. And this fly is buzzing around him, and he's trying to shoo it. Anyone who knows the friendliness of a fly, or how much a mosquito is determined to make sure that it gets just a little bit of our blood, you will know how difficult it is to be able to swat that away. And of course, the fly is buzzing around the caliph. He's doing this, and he's doing that, and he's trying to hit him with probably a book or whatever, whatever you do to be able to swat the fly away. In his frustration, he asks Imam alayhi salam, why did Allah create these things, this fly? You probably do something like that out of frustration. Why did Allah make this thing? Sometimes we walk past the bed and we stub our toe. Why is this there? Why did Allah make this darn thing? Happens all the time. Kick the coffee table. Why did Allah create this fly? Imam alayhi salam responds, to show even the grandest of kings that they don't have even the power to swat away a fly. Can you see? Every little thing we are in need of saying, Insha'Allah. Every little thing we are in need of ascribing to Allah to make sure that we're able to complete that. And if Allah desires to make it even better an outcome, aqrab, or make it aqdam, to be able to come quicker, that's entirely with the determination of linking that thing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the hadith of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh, it is mentioned, if you leave for a journey, you should recite 3 times Ayatul Kursi. In the narration, it says that a person who recites Ayatul Kursi once, Allah sends an angel down to protect him on his journey from the time he leaves to the time he returns. If you recite Ayatul Kursi twice, Allah sends 2 angels to keep you protected on your journey from the time you leave to the time you return. And if you recite Ayatul Kursi 3 times, Allah calls back those 2 angels and says, now he is under my protection directly. Allah will determine for you to make it positive, the outcome, whether it is that you need to be delayed in your journey, or whether you need to go earlier in your journey, or have a better one, or whatever it may be. We're entirely reliant on linking that act with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is one of how to be able to take advantage of Allah being al-Mua'khir and al-Muqaddim. Second feature is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help a community in terms of how it responds to a demand from Allah for more consciousness
in what it does. So Allah says everything has got a set time. It's the stars, it's my life, it's even the life of an empire, it's even the length of a community. You've seen many, many, many times communities come, communities go, communities die out. Yesterday, the Husseiniya is filled with people. Tomorrow, that very same community, sadly, closes down. They don't have the same number of people that they had last time. They have to, and actually, you will see all around this country, churches every single week are being sold, many a time to Muslim communities, turning those very same churches into mosques. And the Christian community cannot understand what's going on. Allah is Al-Muqaddim, He is Al-Mua'khir. He has determined a time, a lifespan for even these adyan, even for these deen, these religions. And you can see them in front of our eyes, many, many times coming to an end in front of your own eyes. You don't think that this doesn't happen even to you and I? In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us an incredible example of how a community needs to respond to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a greater degree of consciousness, such that Allah will continue its progression, expedite that community towards its ultimate goals and outcomes. Please open your Qur'ans to chapter number 58, Surah Al-Mujadala, verse number 11. With a very interesting ayah. Maybe you've heard, maybe sometimes we don't know the meaning behind this particular verse. Chapter number 58, Surah Al-Mujadala, verse number 11. This is an incredible ayah. Powerful indication to the histories in Islam and an incredible ishara pointing towards the reality of any community and how Allah interacts with that community. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. So pay attention, it's addressing directly us. Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. إذا قيل لكم تفسحوا في المجالس فافسحوا. O you who believe, when it is said to you, make room in your assemblies, in your majalis, in your gatherings, then make ample room. Huh? It's strange, isn't it? Does Allah have to reveal an ayah in revelation? I mean, this is revelation, for God's sake. This is the most important communication from God. Don't you think that it's a bit strange that God has to tell you that when you're in your majalis and you're told to make room, there's 10 people waiting outside. We stop the majlis and we say, look, there's people waiting outside, they don't have space. Please, can everyone stand up, walk forward 3 paces, sit down so the people at the back can make room. Fine. I mean, it's so ordinary. Even a child understands it. Do you need to reveal it in revelation? Does Allah need to capture it for all times? So that every human being in the history of humanity has access to this? Surely there's something deeper going on. Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. إذا قيل لكم تفسحوا في المجالس فافسحوا. What will happen? يفسح الله لكم. When it is said to you, make ample room in your assemblies, then make ample room. Allah will give you ample. So if you make room, Allah will make room for you. If you make space, Allah will make ample space for you. Again, why does this need to be explained? What is going on here in the Quran? The history of this revelation, or the verse, as to why it was revealed at the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In Masjid Nabawi, the Prophet used to sit with his companions, and there was a time when actually he used to sit on a ledge, sort of a raised ledge, so that everyone can see him. Not yet did he have a pulpit in the way in which we think about the pulpit. Actually, one hadith from the companion Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari says that the prophet's first ever pulpit was actually a tree that he used to lean against. And then when people could no longer see him because he was sitting and leaning against the tree, a carpenter decided, I will actually make a proper pulpit for you. And so made a pulpit in the masjid of the Prophet. So the Prophet moved from leaning against that tree, going to a proper pulpit. The narration says that the tree used to moan and cry at the absence of the Prophet, because it used to be able to be a support for the Prophet's back. So sometimes the Prophet would sit on a pulpit and sometimes he would sit on a ledge. In this ayah, the history mentions that he was sitting on a ledge, so he's above and people can see him. They used to sit, for example, like this in sort of a semicircle and going backwards. Hadith mentions about the reason why this ayah was revealed, that several of the warriors from the Battle of Badr came in. And the Prophet would stop his speech in order to be able to give salutation to them. Salamun alaykum. And then they would respond, wa alaykum salam ya Rasulullah. And then they, the warriors from Badr, the victors from Badr, they would give salam to the jama'ah that was sitting with the Prophet. Why did the Prophet initiate the salam? And why did they initiate salam to the people who were sitting with the Prophet? The Prophet wanted to show those who were sitting his level of respect for the warriors of Badr. That he would break his khutbah and he would give them the attention and due love and affection and respect for them being the first warriors in Islamic history. So he would give them salam. Then, those who were from Badr didn't want any sort of pride and takabbur to come inside their hearts. So they would give salam to the rest of the jama'ah that was sitting there. Not to wait so that the others turn around and go, oh, salamu alaykum. Just because the Prophet is giving, oh, now we also have to give. They would actually give salam to the rest of the jama'ah. The hadith says that those who were from the battle of Badr, they stood waiting to be given space to come sit next to the Prophet. The Prophet wanted to welcome them and sit them next to him to show the rest of the ummah how important the mujahideen of Islam are. Mujahideen of Badr, mujahideen of Karbala, mujahideen today who beat ISIS, mujahideen today who beat Israel. Mujahideen, the affection and respect and them being ahead of everybody else is actually a practice that the Prophet himself started. This is the sharaf that we're supposed to be able to give to our mujahideen and shuhada. They stood there waiting. None of the mu'mineen gave way. They wouldn't, because they wanted to be at the feet of the Prophet. They didn't realize that those people were not given that same sharaf as the mujahideen from Badr. Now the Prophet with his akhlaq could not say anything. And in fact, this caused the fitna, because the hypocrites used to say, look at how the Prophet is giving more love and more affection to one group of the mu'mineen than another group of mu'mineen. And he would use this, or the munafiqeen would use this to create friction between two sets of believers. Allah revealed this verse. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, idha qila lakum tafassahu fil majalis, fafsahu. If you're told to make way for those people who are supposed to be given precedence within Islam. Because of your deference to them, because of your humility to those people who are given the highest rank in Islam, yafsahillahu lakum. Allah will also make preference for you as well. When you learn to become humble like Islam wants you to be as a community, to fulfill the duties of that hierarchy, that order of those who give the most in the way of Islam, they should be honored the most. Allah loves that you have that recognition within yourselves. Allah will also raise you in the same way. وَإِذَا قِيلَ انشُزُوا فَانشُزُوا يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ. When it is said, rise up, then rise up. Allah will exalt those of you who believe, and those who are given knowledge in high degrees. Allah is aware of what you do. Allah will raise you. He will make ample for you. He will rise up. He will make you rise up, and He will ensure that there's a greater degree of knowledge for people. But this only comes with what? Again, a consciousness that has to come within the community, and Allah will give you more. Being al-Muqaddim, He will actually give more earlier and quicker than what we had previously been determined. This is an example from the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Last example. Please turn to chapter number 34, verse number 10. Chapter number 34, Surah Sabah, verse number 10 and 11. It's all the way to verse number 13, but I'll be quick and explain the ayah, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ مِنَّا فَضْلًا. We gave to Dawood a fadl. A fadl is an excessive grace. It's something extra that he gives to certain people in certain ways. This is the meaning of fadl Quranically. يا جبال أوي بي معه والطير وَلَنَّا لَهُ الْحَدِيدِ. And we made iron compliant for him. You see, iron is something very tough to be able to mold, isn't it? Allah showed Dawood alayhi salam how to be able to make use of this mineral resource. What did he say? أَنِعْمَلْ سَابِغَاتٍ وَقَدِّرْ فِي السَّرْدِ وَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. This is the key. وَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. Make ample coats of mail. So this was chain mail. Dawood alayhi salam was taught how to make intricate chain mail that could withstand against other types of weapons that previously people could not withstand again. If someone stabs you in war with a sword, it's going to go through skin and bone. But if you create a certain type of chain mail, it will block. So Allah told him this, I'm going to show you how to be able to utilize these different resources. وَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. You see, with these resources that God gives, you're not free to be able to utilize them as you want. With that technology that God gives to you, it is on the condition of وَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا, that you have to be able to do good with it. You see, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said to humankind, I have made the entirety of the universe سَخَّرَ لَكُمْ. I've given it over to you to use, subservient to you. Some things Allah has given us which are out of our reach. We can't reach the sun, we can't reach the stars, yet those things are made for our usage. There are other things that Allah has given to us directly in our hands for usage, like iron, like He gave to Dawood alayhi salam, in order to be able to teach humanity how to be able to utilize those resources. Without these prophetic knowledges, we wouldn't know how to be able to utilize many of these things that have come to us. In order for Allah to be able to give us more, to expedite what we need as a human community to keep progressing, to be able to make life better for us, to be able to understand the depth of what Allah has created for us, for Him to use His sunnah of being Al-Muqaddim, the expediter of even these technological advancements, the condition of that is وَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. The moment we use and abuse these different technologies that God has given to us, these different resources that Allah has given to us, Allah can become al-Muqaddim in the sense that we run out of these things quicker. And we're not being given a delay for these things. Or He will not give us a newer technology to help us within our life, to help sustain ourselves, to make life easier for us, to help protect ourselves. He won't be al-Muqaddim unless we actually utilize these technologies as accordance with the condition that He gave to Dawood alayhi salam. وَأَعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. Exactly the same thing. When we say Allah is the one who can expedite, it is not as simple as saying, oh, we want our dua to be expedited. Everything that Allah has created has a determined time, ajalin musamma, but at the same time, it is down to us to be able to utilize that sunnah of Allah, that He can either be the one who expedites or He can be the one who delays that thing for us. And here are some of the Quranic conditions that we need to be able to be aware of as to how to be able to make benefit of those things in our own way, in our own life, in our own time, individually and collectively. It could be that tomorrow you and I need to make sure that we attach the action that we are doing with Allah in order to make it better for us. It could be that we as a community need to better ourselves and take something from Allah. Allah will give us something quicker or delay a worse thing for us in order to protect and preserve us. Or it could be that as a community or as a human community, we have to be able to utilize the resources that Allah gives to us in the very best ways. Allah does this with these divine names of Al-Muqaddim and Al-Mu'khir. Tonight for us is the night of Arba'een. Today many of you will have seen in Karbala millions of people paying homage to Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. You would have seen them weeping, you would have seen them doing ma'tam, reciting elegies, giving themselves to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam out of love for him and what he stood for. I want you to call upon the time in which the maqtal of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam broke you the most. You probably remember a time when you read the maqtal or you heard the maqtal and it broke you. You couldn't control yourself. You wept like a child needing its mother. Maybe at the end, it overcame you so much that you coughed and you spluttered, or you just threw down your hat, or you slapped your cheek in grief. Whatever it may have been, I want you to recall that moment when you understood the tragedy of Hussein alayhi salam as if it was unfolding in front of your very eyes. And on a night like tonight, on the night of Arba'een, in which we commemorate Imam al-Sajjad and Sayyida Zainab and Sayyida Kulthum returning back to Karbala, I want you to imagine how they must have felt as the hours approached in which they would land again in the battlefield of Karbala. Can you imagine them being only a few hours away? Can you imagine what they must be feeling like? With them are the heads of the shuhada, that every step that they take, that they have within their own hands, within their own luggage, within the things that they are carrying, the heads of Imam al-Hussein, the head of Al-Abbas, the head of Ali al-Akbar, the head of Qasim, the head of Awn and Muhammad. Can you imagine that as Sayyida Zainab begins to see the outskirts of Karbala, can you imagine the pain and the grief within her heart, knowing that the last time she was here, she was sitting upon a horse an unsaddled horse with her hands bound, and she probably saw behind her Imam as-Sajjad alayhi salam being forced to walk even though he was at the point of semi-consciousness, and every time he asked for something, a little bit of mercy, that they would probably lash Imam as-Sajjad alayhi salam and tell him to run behind that horse and keep up pace with those horses and camels. I want you to imagine that as Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam has to enter back into Karbala, as she enters, if she looks towards the left, she will see the burial place of Abu Fadl Abbas. If she looks towards the right, she will see the burial place of her sons. She will see the burial place of Ali al-Akbar. But none of it will hold the amount of pain as she looks towards the place in which Abu Abdullah al-Hussein has been buried. Can you imagine Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam's return in that moment? How she must have flung herself on the grave of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. One of our Maraja al-Kiram says a line of poetry, a line of gham, a line of maqtal that he reflects upon and recites. He says that on the evening of Sham-e Ghariban, Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam comes to do the ziyarah of her brother Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. That she sees this body of Hussein torn to pieces in front of her. It is a body without a head. It is a body that has been trampled upon by the horse's hooves. It is a body that has been stolen from and ransacked, and even has his hand and fingers severed from its body. This is the state in which she sees the body of her brother Hussein. It is said that she calls out with a gasp. She says, "Ah, are you really my brother? Because when I previously had you, I had you in my arms. We were able to embrace. Is this how I find you? Are you really my brother Hussein? The difference between how I left you half an hour ago and how you are now." The Marja actually says this line of poetry. He says, I imagine that when Zainab alayhi salam returned back to Karbala, after the way in which she had been treated, after the lashings, after having had sticks and stones thrown at her, after not being given any shelter and comfort, after the heat had burnt her face, after the cold had cracked her face, when she returns in this state, he imagines, he says, I wonder, did a voice come from the grave of Hussein and say, "Oh sister, is this really you? Is this really you, how you have returned back to me? From when last time I left you, you had not got this way. Now your back has become bent. Your face has become cracked from the amount of burning sun upon it. Is this how I find you, oh my sister Zainab?" I want you to imagine that as Zainab and Kulthum arrive back at this place, I want you to then imagine another line of gham. I want you to imagine a voice from the grave comes, "Oh Rabab, I left you with my daughter Sakina. Where is Sakina now?" How would Rabab respond but by saying, "Oh my beloved husband Hussein, I could not save Sakina. She succumbed to all the wounds that befell her. She is lying in that grave in that dungeons of Sham." ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. مات بحسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. उस वक्त जब के ज़ैनब दरबार में गई थी, कारी नमाजियों से महफिल सजी हुई थी। जालिम ये पूछता چھپائے زینب یہ کہہ رہی تھیں اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان سر چھپاؤں کہاں اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان سر چھپاؤں کہاں اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان سر چھپاؤں کہاں مجمع عام میں بے وطن بے امان آ گیا کارواں اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان سر چھپاؤں کہاں اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان سر چھپاؤں کہاں میں بھی ہوں مرضیہ بنت خیر النساء میرے لہجے میں ہے بابا تیری ادا نام زینب میرا تو نے جو رکھ دیا دی اپنی زبان اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان سر چھپاؤں کہاں اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان سر چھپاؤں کہاں بابا جو میرے داں مانگتی رہ گئی بام و در سج گئے جیتے جی مر گئی حلقہ شام میں نام سن کر میرا مر گیا ناتواں اے میرے بابا جان ہو رہی ہے اذان سر چھپاؤں کہاں
يا بنت صاحب الحوض واللواء. السلام عليك يا بنت فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا بنت خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا بنت سيد الأوصياء والركن الأولياء أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا بنت ولي الله. السلام عليك يا أم المصائب، يا زينب بنت علي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك أيتها الفاضلة الرشيدة. السلام عليك أيتها العاملة الكاملة. السلام عليك أيتها الجليلة الجميلة. السلام عليك أيتها التقية النقية. السلام عليك أيتها المظلومة المقهورة. السلام عليك أيتها الرضية المرضية. السلام عليك يا تالي المعصوم. السلام عليك يا ممتحنة في تحمل المصائب بالحسين المظلوم. السلام عليك أيتها البعيدة عن الآفاق. السلام عليك أيتها الأسيرة في البلدان. السلام على من شهد بفضلها الثقلان. السلام عليك أيتها المتحيرة في وقوفك في قتلاه. السلام عليك أيتها المتحيرة في وقوفك في القتلى وناديت جدك رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله بهذا النداء. صلى عليك مليك السماء. هذا حسين بالعراء مسلوب الإمامة والرداء. Hussein lies in the deserts without the imamah, chopped up in pieces. مقطع الأعضاء وبناتك السبايا, and the daughters captive. السلام على روحك الطيبة وجسدك الطاهر. السلام عليك يا مولاتي وابنة مولاي وسيدتي وابنة سيدتي ورحمة الله وبركاته. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله وصبرت على الأذى في جنب الله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله من جحدك ولعن الله من ظلمك ولعن الله من لم يعرف حقك ولعن الله أعداء آل محمد من الجن والإنس من الأولين والآخرين وضاعف عليهم العذاب الأليم. أتيتك يا مولاتي وابنة مولاي قاصدا وافدا عارفا بحقك، فكوني شفيعا إلى الله في غفران ذنوبي وقضاء حوائجي وإعطاء سؤلي وكشف ضري، وأن لك ولأبيك وأجدادك الطاهرين جاها عظيما وشفاعة مقبولة. السلام عليك وعلى آبائك الطاهرين المطهرين وعلى الملائكة المقيمين في هذا الحرم الشريف المبارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. حمباهم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى أخيه أبي الفضل العباس وأخته الحوراء زينب الكبرى، وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين مأجورين إن شاء الله. محمد
صلوات. Just a quick announcement. Tomorrow is the Arba'een day. The program will start earlier. so that we'll finish with Maghrib Namaz. So the program will start at 7 o'clock sharp. And we'll start the program with the Maqsusi, which is the Ziyarat of Arabain. We'll start off with that, followed by Marisha, and then Majalis, Matam, and then Namaz. And then after Namaz, there'll be Dua Kumal, inshallah, followed by Ziyarat of Aritha. Salawat. Allahumma salli ala. There's one other announcement. There's a car, Suzuki, Seat. YG68 TLW. If that belongs to you, then the people, it's blocking the car, and if you could kindly move it, that would be appreciated. Okay, thank you.